Friends, this is Krish the Urban Naxal, and today I want to talk about transactions and contracts. And of course, there is always in the background the contract, the transaction of buying a house, including an under construction house. And I want to explain a few things in the light of contracts and transactions and long-term transactions such as buying an under construction house, or big and complicated transactions such as buying a house which consists of many steps. So let us talk about transactions and let us talk about what role conditions have to play in such transactions, whether they have a positive role, conditions, or whether they have a negative role, and what is a fair and equal transaction and what is an unfair transaction, and what are the elements of the unfair transaction. What is fairness? What is unfairness? How does unfairness creep in? When does unfairness creep in? How do you exactly put your finger on the unfairness of a transaction? Let us talk about these things in the context of real estate, but also in a larger context. We may talk about it also in the context of employer-employee relationships, or the relationship between someone who gives a contract and someone who executes the contract, a contractor or a supplier. We may talk about it in the context of these various things. Let us start with what is a transaction. See guys, each individual has his own money. My money is my money, your money is your money. Your time is your time, my time is my time. We don't need to share. We do not have a need for giving or taking anything, either money or time, or skills, or work. But a need arises, and for that a certain exchange is decided. Let us start with a very basic example. Suppose you want to buy bananas. You want to eat bananas, so you go to the market, you pay 50 rupees, you buy a dozen bananas. The transaction is complete. It is a very small transaction. 50 rupees given, bananas taken. You can go home and eat the bananas. The fruit vendor can use the 50 rupees for whatever he wants. There are no hooks attached. Everybody is free. So, for a brief moment, two individuals met. The guy who bought the bananas and the guy who had the bananas. There was a contact. There was a moment of transaction. The bananas were taken. The money was given. Was there a risk in the transaction? And the answer is yes, there was a risk. There were two risk points. A risk point for the guy selling the bananas and a risk point for the guy buying the bananas. When the bananas were handed over to the guy who had the money, if that guy who had the money walked away without paying for the bananas, then the banana seller is at a risk. So he starts shouting, he starts trying to manage the risk and get his money or get back the bananas. Alternatively, the guy who gave the money to the banana seller first, and then the banana guy didn't give him, the fruit vendor didn't give him the bananas. This guy's 50 rupees is gone, and that guy now says, I don't have it, or I'm not going to give it for whatever reason. And he does not. Now this guy has lost, he is in risk of losing. So what does he do when he is in risk of losing? He starts shouting. He starts creating a ruckus at the vendor's shop in the hope that he is going to pressure the fruit vendor into giving him the bananas or giving him the money back. This is your transaction. The risk is very low, 50 rupees and 1 dozen bananas. These are low stakes. However, the stakes can be higher. If you're buying something which is more valuable, you go to a jewelry store, there the transaction has to be more guarded. That is why you have CCTV cameras everywhere. The reason you have CCTV cameras in jewelry stores is the stakes are higher on both the sides. On the side of the jeweler, he is afraid that someone will take the jewelry and not pay the money. On the side of the guy paying the money, his risk is that the jeweler will take the money and not give the jewelry. To manage this risk, you have CCTV cameras. However, the balance is on the side of the jeweler because the CCTV cameras belong to the jeweler. Who's controlling the CCTV cameras? The jeweler. Suppose he takes the money and doesn't give him the jewelry and refuses to show the contents of the CCTV camera, show him the footage, refuses to prove, he starts obstructing, then the jeweler is more likely to win and the guy who gave the money is less likely to win. Maybe the jeweler can say, oh, the CCTV cameras were spoiled. Some such thing can be done. Oh, they got deleted accidentally. There is no CCTV footage. So the person who is in control of the situation, the person who is in control of the proof, ends up having an unfair advantage in that trade. Now this is still, we are talking about one item, let us say 25,000 rupees of jewelry versus 25,000 rupees in money. So this is your risk profile. It is a relatively low risk profile. Now let us go into a higher risk profile. There is a flat. You need to buy a flat. You go to a builder. Let us say the flat is ready. It is a ready possession flat. What is the risk profile within this transaction? Well, a flat has to be registered in your name and you need to pay a large amount of money. You can't pay it in cash. You can't just give it in one shot. So this is a multi-step transaction. There are at least 4 or 5 steps, and after those 4 or 5 steps are completed, all the money will go to the builder and all the entire flat, the title and the possession will come into the hands of the buyer. Now, the flat, remember, has 2 aspects to it. The paperwork, which is the title, and the actual flat, the possession of the flat. So, both are important. One is incomplete without the other. It is no use for the flat buyer if he goes and occupies the flat, but the paperwork is not in his name. So, he has possession without getting title. Alternatively, it is no use if he has the paper, the title, but the flat is not in his possession. He is not able to go and enter the flat, and the flat is still under the lock and key of the builder. So it is, both the cases are useless to him. So the transaction happens in a phase-wise manner. Now the builder, we are still talking about a ready possession flat, and there are risks involved for both the parties. How are the risks managed? The buyer first gives a token to the builder and says, I want to buy this flat. There is a deal. The builder may first say, okay, this flat is going to cost 50 lakhs. The buyer says, no, I only want to pay 45 lakhs for this flat. At first the builder doesn't agree, then finally he agrees. Now when he agreed, there is a handshake. There is an agreement. That agreement, it's a tiny little agreement. It is not a big agreement. It's not a legal agreement. All the terms and conditions have not been written into it. But in the space of that tiny little agreement, there is only one thing. You give me 45 lakh rupees, I will give you the flat. So you give me 45 lakh rupees in the short term or medium term, say 1 month, I will see to it that you have the flat, the title of the flat and the possession of the flat. This is the nature of this transaction. This transaction can also happen between two persons, a reseller, a flat owner who is reselling his flat, and a buyer of a flat. The transaction is the same. Now, when the person gives his token, there are some things which are implicit. There are things that are implied by the token, and it has to be understood in the same way by both of them. What is implied in the token is, boss, you will not try to sell this flat for 50 lakh rupees to someone else. You have agreed to give me this flat for 45 lakhs. I have accepted to pay you 45 lakhs for this flat. We are not going to renegotiate. I am not going to ask for it at 40 lakhs and you will not ask for 50 lakhs from someone else or 50 lakhs from me. So we have closed this deal. Hence the token. The token means we have closed this deal. That is the meaning of token. And if that is the correct meaning of the token, then a certain amount can be given, say 1 lakh rupees, 2 lakh rupees, even 5 lakh rupees can be given as a token, and reciprocally the builder or the person selling the flat says, now this flat has started becoming yours. Now there is a process. Why is there a process? Because this guy wasn't carrying 50 lakh rupees in a bag. Or he may be capable of shooting 50 lakh rupees into the bank account of the seller, but the registration is not happening on the same day. So registration has some steps. There are papers to be made. The paperwork has to be done. There is an agreement. Agreement has to be signed, and then both the parties, the buyer and the seller, have to go to the stamp duty office. Okay, the stamp duty has to be paid by the buyer. The whole thing has to be registered. Ideally, the signature should happen there in front of the registrar's office, in the view of cameras. They are both identified who has signed, so that there is no forgery and nothing gets sold through forgery, and so on and so forth. And once the registration is done and the remaining amount is paid, if all goes well, then the possession of the flat, the tala chabi, the lock and key of the flat, gets given to the owner. The new owner now enters his house and takes possession of the house. He possesses his house. He now starts living in that house or using that house the way he wants. This is your entire transaction. It is a complicated transaction. Even if it is a ready possession or a resale flat, it is a complicated transaction. Now, where are the risk factors? Let us look at the risk factors. Mr. A, the buyer, pays a token of 2 lakh rupees to Mr. B, who is the seller. Mr. B may take the token and he may not honor a commitment. He may be a dishonorable man. He may take the token and say, sorry, I won't give you the house. Now the money has gone into the possession of Mr. B, the seller. The possession of the money means Mr. A's name is not written on the money. Money has gone into his bank account, or cash has been given to that guy, and that guy, the seller, has taken that cash and put it somewhere. Now, if it is cash, what is the proof? Where is the proof? No proof has been generated. That is a very risky thing, because now this guy can't go and complain anywhere. If he goes to complain, the buyer goes to complain. Everybody says, where is the proof that you gave him money? When did you give him 2 lakhs? How did you give him 2 lakhs? How could you give him 2 lakhs? Why did you not give him a bank transfer? So instead, he gives a bank transfer. In the case of a bank transfer, there is proof. But even if there is proof, this buyer still has a problem because, well, maybe you didn't give the money towards a flat. Maybe you gave the money towards something else. How do we know you gave the money towards a flat? Maybe you owed him 2 lakh rupees. For what? For anything. I don't know. Maybe you owed him 2 lakh rupees because he had supplied a truckload of grapes to your house from Nasik. I don't know. So you gave him 2 lakhs. Now you have to prove it is yours. So you have entered, the guy who is buying, by giving a token, enters into a risk zone. He knowingly accepts a risk. Now why does he accept a risk? Because he has faith in society. He has faith in the legal system. He has faith in his ability to take back those 2 lakhs. By some means, by some methods. What can his methods be? In the case of the banana seller, if money was given to the banana seller, then he raises a ruckus. He starts shouting in front of the shop. He says, "Give me back my money. Why did you take my money?" Da, 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 da. He starts shouting. Hopefully, the banana seller will say, "Listen, if this guy keeps shouting in front of my shop, I am going to lose other customers. That is why I am going to give him back his money, or I'll give him a dozen bananas to get rid of him so that he doesn't make trouble." In the case of a builder, what are the options? Can you go and shout in front of that builder's office? Well, you can. But the police will tend to favor the builder. So if the builder phones and says, "This guy he's shouting in front of my office, he's creating a disturbance," the police will come and take him away and say, "Why are you creating a disturbance?" If he happens to be inside the premises of the builder can even file a complaint of trespass, which is a serious complaint. If you go and shout inside the office of a builder, you can be booked for trespass. As for getting the 2 lakh rupees back, the police will say, "Well, that is between you and the builder, that's a civil matter." Is it a civil matter? Well, not exactly. But the police does not get into these things. As far as builders are concerned, they say it's a civil matter. We don't know anything. You went and gave your money. They didn't come and take your money. They didn't pick your pocket. They didn't steal it from you. You gave it. So you go to court, you go to RERA, you go where you want, but don't shout outside his office. What do you do? What can you do? Well, that is where my channel comes in. Of course, you can go to RERA, you can go to court, you can go wherever you want, but coming to me and publishing a video with, giving me some proof that you have given 2 lakh rupees, 5 lakh rupees to a builder and he's not giving it back to you. That is the equivalent of you shouting in front of the shop of the fruit seller. That's just like you shouting in front of the shop of the fruit seller to get your money back. Basically, it amounts to the same thing, bom marne ka, in order to get your money back. Now, is it wrong? Why is it wrong? Why would it be wrong? If you have genuinely given someone money and he is not giving it back to you for whatever reason, do you not have the right to say, "I have given this guy the money and he is not giving it back to me"? These are facts. So it is not a crime. It is not defamation. Now, you go 1 or 2 steps further. You enter into an agreement. You gave him a token, and after giving him a token, you signed some papers, obviously. You should have actually signed an MOU with the person you gave the money to. Instead, what you signed is an application form, which is all wrong. But you did that. Then he gave you an allotment letter, which is also wrong, because what you should have had is an MOU, a memorandum of understanding. After that, you signed an agreement. You registered the agreement. Now, at the stage of signing the agreement, and we are still talking about ready possession flat. Remember, we are not talking about under construction, or we are talking about resale. Do not sign application forms. Do not accept allotment letters. Sign an MOU with the builder who is selling you a flat or with the party who is selling you a flat, who is a reseller. MOU is Memorandum of Understanding. In a Memorandum of Understanding, both the parties are equal. He has to clearly state that he is taking a token towards giving you a flat and he is signing on it. And the moment you give him the money, it is understood that that flat is committed to you. It is now, it is supposed to be for you. It has not become yours, but it is for you. After that, you get into a registered agreement. Now, in the registered agreement, what are the things that are written? Again, before registered agreement, you are going to pay more money, or at the time of signing the registered agreement, maybe on the same day, same afternoon, you will send money by RTGS to his bank account. Do you have to pay the entire amount? Not necessarily. You pay a chunk of the amount. Now you are entering into a certain amount of risk, but he is also entering into risk by giving you the title of the flat. Now what is title? Title is the paperwork. The paperwork says that the flat is yours, but all is not lost because he still has possession of the flat. He still has the lock and key of the flat. The flat is in his possession. He has not given you the possession. And if you don't give him the remaining amount, he will not give you the possession. He will hold on to it and he will point to a clause in the agreement saying, I will transfer the possession of the flat on condition that the entire amount is given to me. So upon realization of the full value of the flat will be given to the flat buyer, Mr. A. So these are the wordings that will be there in the title itself. So if he is able to prove that I did not receive the full payment, the check was not realized, the check bounced, or the money never came in any which way, then he is under no compulsion to give you the possession. The flat title is in your name, but now it is disputed. Now there is a dispute. So in this way, risk is shared between buyer and seller. You give him the entire amount, he gives you the flat. Now he is clear and you are clear. In this way, risk management is done between a buyer and a seller. This is how a complicated transaction is completed. It is a transaction, it is a contract. Understand this and we will talk about under construction property. I am Krish, the Urban Naxal. Jai Hind.